They threw her out of her own hotel. Right in the middle of the lobby, in front of everyone with cameras rolling. 2 minutes later, the entire shift disappeared from the payroll. Why, just one sentence made everyone turn pale. Don't blink what they opened in the operations. Safe changed the entire game. Where are you watching from? Comment your location, plus subscribe to Black Stories Box so you don't miss part 2. My name is Marcus Bennett, and I've seen some things in my 20 years working in hospitality. But what happened at the Lexington Royal last Tuesday? That's the kind of corporate justice you rarely get to witness in real time. It was just after 7 p.m. peak check-in time. The lobby was buzzing with the usual mix of business travelers clutching their loyalty cards, tourists with their oversized luggage, trying to figure out the self-check-in kiosks, and the occasional celebrity trying to look inconspicuous behind designer sunglasses. The marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting of crystal chandeliers, reflecting the hotel's supposed commitment to excellence. I was at the bar nursing an overpriced Manhattan and catching up on emails when Dr. Amara Daniels walked through the revolving doors. My company had booked me here for a 3-day conference, and I was more interested in my drink than the comings and goings of other guests. That changed quickly. She wasn't flashy, just a simple black pantsuit, minimal jewelry, natural hair in a professional style, and a single carry-on rolling behind her. Nothing about her screamed, "I own this place," which I suppose was the whole problem. The moment she approached the front desk, I could see the shift in body language from the reception staff. The head receptionist, a blonde woman named Vanessa Porter, straightened up and gave her what hospitality veterans call the look, that subtle once-over that separates those deemed worthy of VIP treatment from those who aren't. "Can I help you?" Vanessa asked, not bothering to mask the skepticism in her tone. Her voice carried across the marble lobby, causing a few nearby guests to glance up. Dr. Daniels nodded politely. "Yes, I'm here to inspect the operations safe and conduct a quarterly audit." Her voice was measured professional, the voice of someone used to being in charge. Vanessa's eyebrow shot up. "I'm sorry, guests only in this area. The membership lounge doesn't accept guests who don't meet our standards." She emphasized standards like it was a code word. The lobby fell silent for a beat. A few heads turned, including mine. I put down my drink, suddenly finding the interaction more interesting than my email. "Modern verification in 2025, folks," I muttered to the bartender, a young guy named Tyler who'd been friendly since I checked in. "Judge a book by its cover and its coat." Tyler nodded, wiping a glass. "Happens more than you'd think." Vanessa demanded identification, purposely speaking louder than necessary. "We've had incidents lately. I'll need to see multiple forms of ID and your membership card." Several guests pulled out their phones, sensing drama. I couldn't blame them. I'd have done the same if my phone wasn't dying. One business traveler in a rumpled suit was already recording discreetly. The head of security, a former military guy named Derek Collins, approached with practiced authority. His badge gleamed under the lobby lights and his hand rested casually near his radio, not threatening but clearly present. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside for some fresh air," he said in that particular tone security people use when they're trying to sound polite while actually giving an order. "Dr. Daniels remained perfectly calm. "I have an appointment to inspect the operations safe. Please inform General Manager Robert Jenkins that I'm here." She didn't raise her voice or show any sign of agitation, just stated facts, with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was entitled to. An elderly woman sitting in the lobby lounge glanced up from her magazine, her eyes widening in recognition. She looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated, turning back to her tea with a troubled expression. The lobby television was running a segment about service industry, inflation, and immigration debates affecting hotel staffing. The ticker at the bottom showed market updates and headlines about labor shortages in hospitality. Vanessa muttered to her colleague, "We've had so many fraud attempts this week. They're getting smarter with their stories." Dr. Daniels looked directly at a guest who was filming the interaction on his phone. "Go ahead and record, but make sure you get everything she said," her voice eerily calm. Something about her composure made me sit up straighter. This wasn't going to end the way Vanessa thought it would. "Have you ever been judged at first glance? Comment yes or no below." Robert Jenkins, the general manager, emerged from his office with the confident stride of someone used to handling difficult situations. His tailored suit and perfectly knotted tie projected authority, but the slight sheen of sweat on his forehead betrayed his discomfort with public confrontations. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, directing the question to his staff rather than Dr. Daniels. The power dynamic was clear in his body language. He'd already decided who belonged and who didn't. "This woman is claiming she needs access to our operations safe," Vanessa explained with barely disguised disdain. She emphasized claiming as if it were the most absurd thing she'd heard all day. "We reserve the right to refuse service," Robert stated flatly, his tone suggesting the matter was closed. He gestured toward the revolving doors. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding about your appointment." Dr. Daniels nodded once. "I'm invoking Section 9.2 Owner's Override." A timer appeared in my mind, 2:00 minutes. The tension in the lobby thickened like morning fog. Even the ambient music seemed to fade into the background. "I need you to open Operations Safe. A 12 retrieve the black binder and log into the PMS system using code NL Theta Doctor," Daniels said. Just one sentence, but it changed everything. The specific terminology, the confidence with which she delivered it, this wasn't someone trying to scam their way into a hotel safe. Robert's face lost several shades of color. "That's a restricted access code. I'm aware. I created it." The elderly woman in the lounge set down her teacup with a decisive clink. Several guests who had been pretending not to watch were now openly staring. The procedures that followed were precise and methodical. Robert reluctantly led her to the back office, where she retrieved a leather-bound portfolio containing management lease agreements, an authorized personnel list, and an authority matrix. Every document bore the hotel's embossed logo, not something easily forged. She placed a call on speakerphone. "Simone, I'm at the Lexington Royal. Please confirm my identity and authority for the record." A professional voice replied immediately, "Dr. Amara Daniels, CEO of Daniels Capital and owner of the Lexington Royal through Starlight Hospitality, LLC. Full authority confirmed under trust agreement dated the 12th of March 2023. "Do you need me to send additional verification? That won't be necessary yet," Dr. Daniels replied. "Please stay on the line." One of the bellhops, a young Latino man named Carlos Rodriguez, discreetly slipped Dr. Daniels a note while bringing water to the back office. I couldn't see what it said, but her slight nod suggested it was significant. Several guests had gathered near the front desk pretending to ask questions while actually watching the drama unfold. The business traveler was still recording, now joined by two others. When they returned to the lobby, Dr. Daniels swiped a master keycard through the system. The screen flashed with large green letters, "Owner Active." The electronic chime seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. Derek shifted uncomfortably, his security training at odds with the developing situation. Vanessa stood frozen behind the counter, her earlier confidence evaporating like morning dew. "Is this some kind of corporate audit?" a guest whispered loudly to his companion. "Better than that," his friend replied. "Watch what happens next." Tyler leaned over the bar. "I've worked here 2 years and never seen anything like this. That GM has sent away at least a dozen people he thought didn't belong in the last month alone." Robert attempted to maintain his composure, but the slight tremor in his hands as he accessed the computer system betrayed his rising panic. This clearly wasn't in his crisis management playbook. The lobby fell silent as a cemetery at midnight, every eye fixed on the unfolding scene. The power had shifted so dramatically you could almost hear it. "I ordered another Manhattan. Sometimes the universe gives you front row seats to corporate justice, and I wasn't about to miss the show." Dr. Daniels wasted no time. "I'm initiating a rapid audit. I want the cash drawer sealed, the night ledger secured, key log records exported, and the loading dock closed. Everything is to be filmed." Robert began to protest. "This is highly irregular. We have procedures, yes, and they're being violated systematically." Dr. Daniels cut in. "Carlos, would you please ask the front desk staff to step aside temporarily?" Carlos nodded, suddenly standing taller. The respect in his eyes was unmistakable. The methodical way she applied tamper-evident seals to documents complete with timestamps and witness signatures was mesmerizing. Each seal bore a unique number that she recorded in a digital log. 2 guests, a woman who I later learned was financial journalist Sophia Lynn and the elderly woman from earlier, Eleanor Crawford, served as witnesses, signing the verification forms with solemn expressions. "This is standard protocol for suspected ethics violations," Dr. Daniels explained to them. "The chain of custody needs to be impeccable." Sophia nodded. "I've covered corporate fraud cases. This is textbook procedure." Eleanor added, "I'm happy to help ensure everything is done properly." Carlos pulled up a video on his phone showing a staff meeting from the previous week. Derek, the security head, was presenting a list of signals to watch for cheap clothing, heavy accents, certain hairstyles, essentially a profiling checklist disguised as security protocol. "We need to maintain our clientele standards," Robert's voice said from off-camera. "Use these guidelines to identify potential issues before they reach the front desk," Sophia commented quietly. "With labor shortages, some places are taking shortcuts instead of proper training. Profiling is easier than actually teaching good judgment." Dr. Daniels reviewed the footage carefully. "When was this recorded? Last Thursday," Carlos replied. "They make us attend these loss prevention meetings weekly. I've been documenting them because it didn't feel right." "Your instincts were correct, Doctor," Daniels assured him. Robert tried to regain control of the situation, calling the regional director Thomas Wilson. "I overheard fragments disruptive guest, offering compensation vouchers. Avoid escalation." His voice rose and fell as he paced near the concierge desk, gesturing emphatically. "Doctor." Daniels continued her methodical documentation, photographing ledgers and export logs with a small device that added timestamp watermarks to each image. She moved with the efficiency of someone who had done this before and knew exactly what to look for. The system logs show 57 denied check-ins in the past month tagged as profile risk, she noted, showing the screen to Sophia. "No documentation of actual risk factors, just subjective assessments." Robert returned, holding out a voucher. "We'd like to offer complimentary future accommodations to apologize for any misunderstanding." Dr. Daniels declined the voucher offer. Instead, she read aloud a compensation clause for guests who witnessed discriminatory incidents, complimentary night stay plus a formal apology letter. The crowd in the lobby visibly shifted their attention and their allegiance toward her. "Section 14.3 of your guest services agreement," she explained. "I'm implementing it effective immediately for anyone who has witnessed discriminatory practices today." Several guests stepped forward, including a family who had been waiting quietly in the corner. The father explained that they had observed similar treatment when checking in earlier, but had been afraid to speak up. Carlos guided several more staff members, forward housekeepers, kitchen workers, maintenance personnel who had stories to share but had feared for their jobs. Their testimonies painted a pattern, not isolated incidents. "We've been collecting these reports," one housekeeper explained, "but we didn't know who to tell." The lobby had transformed from a luxury hotel entrance to something between a courtroom and a town hall meeting. Guests and staff alike were coming forward, the barriers between them dissolving in the face of shared experiences. I moved closer to hear better my Manhattan forgotten on the bar. What had started as an interesting distraction had become something much more significant, a rare glimpse into how systems of discrimination are built and maintained, and how they can be dismantled when the right person has access to the right levers of power. The black binder revealed a loss prevention program designed by Robert without legal approval. The documentation was meticulous flowcharts showing decision trees for guest risk assessment training materials with thinly veiled profiling criteria and performance metrics that rewarded staff for preventing unsuitable bookings. Security footage from the hotel's own system, now displayed on a tablet for all to witness, showed Robert personally training staff on how to discourage undesirable guests without explicitly violating non-discrimination. Policias. Derek had documented these efforts to secure performance bonuses, keeping detailed records of prevented incidents, a euphemism for turned-away guests who matched their profile. "This is systematic, Doctor," Daniel said quietly. "Not individual bias, but institutionalized discrimination disguised as security protocol." An email from Thomas to Robert read, "Keep risk profile guests under 1% at all costs. The clientele mix affects our premium pricing strategy." Performance metrics had clearly trumped ethical considerations, with financial incentives tied directly to maintaining an exclusive atmosphere. "In this hotel, guests are the measure, and prejudice is the caliper," I thought, taking another sip of my Manhattan. The evidence was damning, but what struck me most was how normal it had all seemed to the perpetrators. Their emails and memos discussed these practices in the bland corporate language of risk management and brand protection, as if the fundamental wrong of judging people based on appearance was just another business strategy to optimize. Sophia started a balanced thread on social media, watching a textbook case of policy abuse unfold at the Lexington Royal. Management created systematic discrimination while bypassing legal review. Standard hospitality protocols ignored. Live updates to follow. Hotel industry professionals began commenting, sharing proper verification protocols that had been ignored. Many expressed shock at the blatant disregard for standard hospitality ethics, while others admitted similar practices existed throughout the industry. "This isn't just about one hotel," a veteran hospitality manager commented. "It's an industry problem we need to address." Robert attempted damage control, claiming the protocols were misunderstood. "These are standard security measures taken out of context," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Eleanor, the elderly woman, finally spoke up. "My grandson came back from Afghanistan and was treated just like this because of his appearance and PTSD behaviors. He was a decorated Marine, but they took one look at his scars and nervous mannerisms and asked him to leave." Her voice trembled slightly, but her gaze was steady. "It's shameful." The lobby's mood shifted completely as personal stories humanized the situation. What had been abstract policies were now revealed as practices that hurt real people, veterans, families, professionals who happened not to fit someone's narrow definition of desirable. A group of business travelers in town for a technology conference shared their experiences of being treated differently based on their various ethnicities. "We spend thousands here every quarter for our team meetings," one explained, "and still get asked to verify our reservations more than our colleagues." Carlos translated for two housekeepers who described being told to check certain rooms more carefully for damage or theft based solely on guest profiles. Their discomfort was evident even as they spoke, the fear of retaliation still present despite Dr. Daniels' presence. Derek tried to deflect. "Every hotel has security protocols. We're just doing our jobs." "Security isn't profiling," Dr. Daniels corrected. "Real security is based on behavior, not appearance. You're confusing prejudice with protection." Robert's phone rang. The regional office was calling back, likely having seen the social media storm brewing. He stepped away to answer, his shoulders hunched with the weight of impending consequences. The black binder contained one more damning section: guest complaint statistics that had been altered before being reported to corporate headquarters. The true numbers showed a pattern of complaints from guests who matched the risk profile criteria systematically downgraded or misclassified to maintain the hotel's customer satisfaction metrics. "They weren't just turning people away," Sophia observed. "They were erasing the experiences of those who did make it through the door." "Dr. Daniels nodded. "Systemic problems require systemic solutions, and I believe we're about to implement one." What nobody expected was the revelation of Dr. Daniels' true position. She wasn't just the owner. Her firm, Daniels Capital, held the mortgage on the building through Starlight REIT. She had the authority to appoint a receiver and suspend the management company entirely. "Ownership takes many forms," she explained to the now rapt audience in the lobby. "Daniels Capital holds the primary note on this property, and Starlight Hospitality LLC is the operating entity. The management company, Apex Hospitality Group, is a contractor that serves at our discretion." Robert returned from his call, his face ashen. "Miss Wilson from Regional is on her way." "That's Miss Thomas Wilson," Regional Director Dr. Daniels clarified. "I believe we already have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. How convenient that she's able to join us early." She signed a temporary suspension order for the management contract, citing the emergency clause in the binder. Her signature was confident, unhesitating, the signature of someone accustomed to making million-dollar decisions. A call to the trust bank confirmed an ethical default event. The banker's voice on speakerphone was formal but clear. "The documented behaviors constitute a breach of Section 17.4 of the Management Agreement regarding ethical business practices and non-discrimination. The owner's intervention is authorized under the emergency provisions." Carlos produced documentation showing kickbacks between Robert and the hotel's laundry contractor, a clear motive for maintaining control over operations regardless of ethical concerns. Bank statements showed regular payments to a shell company registered to Robert's brother-in-law. The discrimination was bad enough, Dr. Daniels noted, but financial impropriety adds another layer to this situation. The situation took another turn when representatives from the local Hospitality Workers Union and an immigrant community organization arrived, having been contacted by staff members after the confrontation began. They expressed support for retraining and retention of good employees while condemning discriminatory practices. This softened Dr. Daniels' image, balancing justice with compassion. "We don't want everyone to lose their jobs," explained Union Representative Maria Vasquez. "Many good people work here who were just following orders. They deserve a second chance under better management. Dr. Daniels agreed. This isn't about punishing everyone. It's about removing a toxic system and the people who created it. Eleanor approached Dr. Daniels quietly. I recognized you from the cover of Business Weekly. You're doing important work here today. Thank you, Doctor, Daniels replied. Sometimes being underestimated is actually an advantage. It shows you exactly where the problems are. Thomas Wilson arrived clearly flustered and trying to project authority she no longer possessed in this situation. Her practiced corporate smile faltered when she saw the assembled witnesses and the documentation spread across the front desk. Dr. Daniels, we should discuss this privately, she suggested, gesturing toward the management offices. I think we've had enough privacy, Doctor, Daniels responded. The practices that developed here thrived because they happened behind closed doors. The solutions will be transparent. Thomas, now on speakerphone with corporate headquarters, had completely changed her tone. We'll follow your guidance on this matter, Dr. Daniels. Corporate is prepared to accept whatever measures you deem necessary. The power dynamics had shifted completely. The very people who had tried to remove Dr. Daniels from the lobby were now deferring to her authority, their previous confidence replaced by the anxious compliance of those who know their jobs hang in the balance. It's amazing how quickly respect appears when they realize who signs the checks, muttered a guest standing near me. I nodded, and how quickly discrimination disappears when there are consequences. The countdown resumed 0040 seconds. Dr. Daniels' attorney Simone Keating, who had remained on the line throughout, confirmed they had sufficient cause. All documentation has been secured and witnessed, she stated. The evidence supports immediate action under the emergency provisions. I'm activating Resolution 12B, Dr. Daniels announced, her voice carrying across the now silent lobby. This terminates the entire shift under the GM's authority, citing systemic breach of trust. Simultaneously, I'm opening a fast-track rehiring process for staff willing to sign a commitment statement and pass a proper procedural test. The resolution displayed on a tablet for all to see outlined a clear process, immediate suspension of management personnel involved in the discriminatory policies, temporary appointment of a receiver to manage operations, and an expedited review process for staff members who wish to be considered for continued employment. Carlos was immediately rehired along with several back-office staff who had maintained proper standards despite pressure from management. His eyes widened when Dr. Daniels offered him a temporary position as liaison between staff and the incoming management team. You demonstrated integrity by documenting unethical practices at personal risk, she explained. That's exactly the quality we need during this transition. The physical actions that followed were decisive, sealing the GM's office, collecting key cards, resetting systems. The local police chief and building manager witnessed everything, ensuring proper legal procedures were followed. Security cameras recorded the entire process, creating an unbroken chain of evidence. Faster than gas prices after an OPEC meeting, I remarked to Tyler, who had been watching the proceedings with undisguised satisfaction. Been waiting for something like this for 2 years, he replied. They've been getting worse every month. Robert, Derek, and Vanessa were escorted from the building, their belongings to be shipped later after being inventoried. Their expressions ranged from shock to anger to resignation as the reality of their situation sank in. Thomas Wilson attempted to salvage her own position. I want to assure you that corporate was unaware of these specific practices. The reports we received were falsified. Yes, Dr. Daniels interrupted, which raises serious questions about your oversight procedures. We'll address those tomorrow during our scheduled meeting. A team from the corporate office arrived to implement temporary management protocols, their efficiency suggesting this wasn't the first emergency intervention they had handled. Within an hour, the hotel was operating under new leadership with staff receiving real-time training on proper verification procedures. Dr. Daniels announced mandatory anti-bias training sessions for all retained employees. This isn't punitive, she clarified. It's to ensure everyone has the tools they need to make better decisions. The guests in the lobby actually applauded. What had begun as an uncomfortable confrontation had transformed into something resembling a community, reclaiming its values. As the immediate crisis stabilized, Dr. Daniels took a moment to address the guests who had witnessed everything. I want to thank you for your patience during this difficult but necessary process. Your stay will be complimentary, and I hope you'll return to experience the Lexington Royal, as it was meant to be a place of genuine hospitality for all. Eleanor approached her again. You handled that with such grace. Others might have burned the place down, figuratively speaking. Dr. Daniels smiled. Justice doesn't need to be destructive to be effective. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply enforce the rules that already exist. I raised my glass in a silent toast from my spot at the bar. In a world where power so often corrupted, it was refreshing to see it wielded with precision and purpose. 6 months later, the transformation was remarkable. I returned to the Lexington Royal for another conference and barely recognized the place, not because of physical changes, but because of the atmosphere. Complaints were down 72%, according to the quarterly report proudly displayed in the lobby. Food and beverage revenue had increased 18%, suggesting guests were spending more time in the hotel rather than seeking refuge elsewhere. Guest satisfaction scores averaged 4.8 out of 5, placing the hotel in the top tier nationally. Carlos had been promoted to guest experience lead, his natural empathy and attention to detail, making him perfect for the role. He recognized me from the bar that night and shared some of the changes that had been implemented. We have clear protocols now, but they're based on behavior, not appearance, he explained. And everyone gets the same verification process, whether they're in jeans or a 3-piece suit. Eleanor now served as a senior guest advisor, helping the hotel better accommodate older travelers and those with special needs. Her grandson, the veteran she had mentioned, was consulting on accessibility improvements. He says it's healing to help make spaces welcoming for everyone, she told me over tea, in the same lobby where everything had happened. Sometimes the best way to heal from exclusion is to build inclusion. Most impressively, Dr. Daniels had established the Dignity in Service Foundation, funding, training, and legal support for victims of profiling in the service industry. Several competing hotel chains had partnered with the initiative, recognizing that ethical service was good for business. The foundation had already assisted with similar cases at other properties, creating a ripple effect throughout the industry. Thomas Wilson had been reassigned to head the company's new ethics compliance division, a demotion in prestige perhaps, but a position where her experience with system failure could be channeled into prevention. Sometimes the people who've seen the problem up close are the ones who can best prevent it, Dr. Daniels explained when I had the chance to interview her for my company's internal newsletter. If they're willing to learn, the hotel staff now reflected the diversity of the city it served, not just in the back of house, but in customer-facing roles as well. Training was rigorous but supportive, focused on genuine hospitality rather than arbitrary standards. I witnessed Dr. Daniels visiting the lobby, shaking hands with the new team. The atmosphere was completely different, professional, yet genuinely welcoming to all guests. Staff members approached her with ideas rather than fear, and she listened with genuine interest. The most valuable asset in hospitality isn't the building or the brand, she told me. It's the culture. And culture is set by leadership, both formal and informal. The black binder still existed, but its contents had been completely replaced. Now it contained the hotel's ethics charter, clear procedures for handling complaints, and resources for staff facing difficult situations. It was kept not in a locked safe, but on open display at the front desk, available to anyone who asked. Perhaps the most telling change was in the small interactions, the way staff greeted every guest with the same level of respect, the absence of that subtle once-over that had been so common before, the genuine interest in solving problems rather than filtering who deserved attention. As one staff member put it, justice doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be clear. Want to see the owner's playbook, 5 steps to secure systems when facing discrimination? Comment playbook and subscribe to Black Stories Box. My name is Marcus Bennett, and that's how I saw justice served at the Lexington Royal. Not with violence or vengeance, but with systems, standards, and the quiet power of ownership. Sometimes the most effective response to discrimination isn't a raised voice, but raised expectations and the authority to enforce them. In a world where power is often misused, it was refreshing to see it wielded with precision, purpose, and a long-term vision for change. Dr. Daniels didn't just fix a moment, she transformed a culture and possibly an industry. The next time you check into a hotel and receive respectful service, regardless of how you look, you might have her to thank. And if you don't, well, perhaps you should check who owns the place. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't who you expect.